Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Gracie Fields. Dame Gracie Fields, DBE, was an English actress, singer and comedian and star of both cinema and music hall. She spent the later part of her life on the Isle of Capri, Italy. Fields was made a Commander of the Order of the British Empire for services to entertainment in 1938, and in 1979, 7 months before her death, she was invested a Dame by Queen Elizabeth II. Early life. Fields was born Grace Stansfield, over a fish and chip shop owned by her grandmother, Sarah Bamford, in Molesworth Street, Rochdale, Lancashire. She made her first stage appearance as a child in 1905, joining children's repertory theatre groups such as Haley's Garden of Girls and the Nine Dainty Dots. Her two sisters, Edith and Betty, and brother, Tommy, all went on to appear on stage, but Gracie was the most successful. Her professional debut in variety took place at the Rochdale Hippodrome Theatre in 1910. And she soon gave up her job in the local cotton mill, where she was a half-timer, spending half a week in the mill and the other half at school. Fields met the comedian and impresario Archie Pitt, and they began working together. Pitt gave Fields champagne on her 18th birthday, and wrote in an autograph book to her that he would make her a star. Pitt began to manage her career and they began a relationship. They married in 1923 at Clapham Registry Office. Their first review was called Yes, I Think So in 1915, and the two continued to tour Britain together until 1924. That year they appeared in the revue Mr. Tower of London, with other shows by request, It's a Bargain, and the shows The Thing. During the following years, Pitt was the brother of Bert Asser, founder of the Asser Agency, which was responsible for many entertainers of the day, including the actor and comedian Stanley Holloway, who was introduced to Asser by Fields. Fields and Holloway first worked together on her film Sing As We Go in 1934, and the two remained close friends for the rest of their lives. Fame. Fields came to major public notice in Mr. Tower of London, which appeared in London's West End. Her career accelerated from this point with legitimate dramatic performances and the beginning of a recording career. At one point, Fields was playing 3 shows a night in London's West End. She appeared in the Pitt production SOS with Gerald du Maurier, a legitimate production staged at the St. James Theatre. Fields' most famous song, which became her theme, Sally, was worked into the title of her first film, Sally in Our Alley, which was a major box office hit. She went on to make several films, initially in Britain and later in the United States. Regardless, she never enjoyed performing without a live audience, and found the process of filmmaking boring. She tried to opt out of filming before director Monty Banks persuaded her otherwise, landing her the lucrative Hollywood deal. Fields demanded that the 4 films be filmed in Britain and not Hollywood, and this was the case. The final few lines of the song, Sally, were written by her husband's mistress, Annie Lightman, which Fields sang at every performance from 1931 onwards, claiming in later life that she wanted to drown Blasted Sally with Walter with the aspidistra on top, a reference to 2 other of her well-known songs, Walter, and It's the Biggest Aspidistra in the World. The famous opera star Luisa Tetrazzini heard her murdering an aria and asked her to sing in grand opera. Gracie decided to stay where I knew I belonged. Charity work. In the 1930s her popularity peaked, and she was given many honors, the Officer of the Venerable Order of St. John, the Commander of the Order of the British Empire in 1938, and the Freedom of the Borough of Rochdale in 1937. She donated her house, The Towers, 53 The Bishops Avenue, London N2, OBJ to an orphanage after the marriage broke down. In 1939, she became seriously ill with cervical cancer. The public sent over 250,000 goodwill messages, and she retired to her villa on Capri. After she recovered, she recorded a very special 78 revolutions per minute record simply called Gracie's Thanks, in which she thanked the public for the many cards and letters she received while in hospital. During World War II, she paid for all servicemen, women to travel free on public transport within the boundaries of Rochdale. Fields also helped Rochdale FC in the 1930s when they were struggling to pay fees and buy sports equipment. In 1933 she set up the Gracie Fields Children's Home and Orphanage at Peacehaven, Sussex, for children of those in the theatre profession who could not look after their children. She kept this until 1967, when the home was no longer needed. This was near her own home in Peacehaven, and Fields often visited, with the children all calling her Auntie Grace. World War II Orchestra entertains airmen at their 1939 Christmas party. In 1939, Fields suffered a breakdown and went to Capri to recuperate. World War II was declared while she was recovering in Capri, and Fields, still very ill after her cancer surgery, threw herself into her work and signed up for the Entertainment's National Service Association headed by her old film producer, Basil Dean. Fields traveled to France to entertain the troops in the midst of air raids, performing on the backs of open lorries and in war-torn areas. She was the first artist to play behind enemy lines in Berlin. Following her divorce from Archie Pitt, she married Italian-born film director Monty Banks in March 1940. However, because Banks remained an Italian citizen, and would have been interned in the United Kingdom after Italy declared war in 1940, she went with him to North America, possibly at the suggestion of Winston Churchill, who told her to make American dollars, not British pounds, which she did, in aid of the Navy League and the Spitfire Fund. She and Banks moved to their home in Santa Monica, California. Fields occasionally returned to Britain, performing in factories and army camps around the country. After their initial argument, Parliament offered her an official apology. Although she continued to spend much of her time entertaining troops and otherwise supporting the war effort outside Britain, this led to a fall-off in her popularity. At home, she performed many times for Allied troops, traveling as far as New Guinea, where she received an enthusiastic response from Australian personnel. In late 1945 she toured the South Pacific Islands. Post-World War II. After the war, Fields continued her career less actively. She began performing in Britain again in 1948, headlining the London Palladium over Eartha Kitt, who was also on the bill. The BBC gave her her own radio show in 1947 dubbed Our Gracie's Working Party, in which 12 towns were visited by Fields, and a live show of music and entertainment was broadcast weekly, with Fields comparing and performing, and local talents also on the bill. This tour commenced in Rochdale. Like so many BBC shows at the time, this show transferred to Radio Luxembourg in 1950, sponsored by Whisk soap powder. Billy Tennant and his orchestra accompanied her. In 1951, Fields opened the Festival of Britain celebrations. She proved popular once more, though never regaining the status she enjoyed in the 1930s. She continued recording but made no more films, moving more towards light classical music as popular tastes changed, often adopting a religious theme. She continued into the new medium of LP records, and recorded new takes of her old favorite songs, as well as new and recent tracks to liven things up a bit. Monty Banks died on the 8th of January 1950 of a heart attack while traveling on the Orient Express. On the 18th of February 1952 in Capri, Fields married Boris Alperovici, a Romanian radio repairman. She claimed that he was the love of her life, and that she couldn't wait to propose to him. She proposed on Christmas Day in front of friends and family. They married at the Church of St. Stefano on Capri in a quiet ceremony before honeymooning in Rome. She lived on her beloved Isle of Capri for the remainder of her life. At her home La Canzone del Mare, a swimming and restaurant complex which Fields' home overlooked, it was favored by many Hollywood stars during the 1950s, with regular guests including Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor, Greta Garbo and Noel Coward. Later years. She began to work less but still toured the UK under the management of Harold Fielding, manager of top artists of the day such as Tommy Steele and Max Bygraves. Her UK tours proved popular, and in the mid-1960s she performed farewell tours in Australia, Canada, and America. The last performance was recorded and released years later. In 1956, Fields was the first actress to portray the title character in Miss Marple in a US TV production of Agatha Christie's A Murder Is Announced. The production featured Jessica Tandy and Roger Moore, and predates the Margaret Rutherford films by some 5 years. She also starred in television productions of A Tale of Two Cities. The old lady shows her medals, for which she won a TV award, and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, which was remade years later, with Angela Lansbury as Mrs. Harris, a charwoman in search of a fur coat. In 1957, her single, Around the World, peaked at number 8 in the UK singles chart, with her recording of Little Donkey reaching number 20 in November 1959, and her edition of sheet music for the song being the UK's bestseller for 7 weeks. She was the subject of This Is Your Life in 1960 when she was surprised by Eamon Andrews at the BBC Television Theatre. Fields regularly performed in TV appearances, being the first entertainer to perform on Vel Parnell's Sunday night at the London Palladium. Fields had 2 Christmas TV specials in 1960 and 1961, singing her old favourites and new songs in front of a studio audience. 1971 saw A Gift for Gracie, another TV special presented by Fields and Bruce Forsyth. This followed on from her popularity on Stars on Sunday, a religious program on Britain's ITV, in which well-known performers sang hymns or read extracts from the Bible. Fields was the most requested artist on the show. In 1968, Fields headlined a 2-week Christmas stint at the West Riding of Yorkshire's prestigious Batley Variety Club. I was born over a fish and chip shop. I never thought I'd be singing in one, claimed Fields during the performance, recorded by the BBC. In 1975, her album, The Golden Years, reached number 48 in the UK Albums Chart. In 1978, she opened the Gracie Fields Theatre, located next to Alder Hill Community School, in her native Rochdale, performing a concert there recorded by the BBC to open the show. Fields appeared in 10 Royal Variety performances from 1928 onwards, her last being in 1978. At the age of 81 she appeared as a surprise guest in the finale, in which she appeared and sang her theme song, Sally. Her final TV appearance came in January 1979. when she appeared in a special octogenarian edition of The Merv Griffin Show in America, in which she sang the song she popularized in America, the biggest aspidistra in the world. Fields was notified by her confidant John Taylor while she was in America that she had the invitation to become a Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire, to which she replied, "Yes, I'll accept. Yes, I can kneel, but I might need help getting back up. And yes, I'll attend, as long as they don't call Boris Buttons." Death. Fields' health declined in July 1979, when she contracted pneumonia after performing an open-air concert on the royal yacht which was docked in Capri's harbour. After a spell in hospital, she seemed to be recovering, but died on the 27th of September 1979. The press reported she died holding her husband's hand, but in reality he was at their Anna Capri home at the time, while Gracie was home with the housekeeper, Irina. She is buried in Capri's Protestant cemetery in a white marble tomb. Her coffin was carried by staff from her restaurant. Her husband Boris died on the 3rd of July 1983. Honors and popular culture. In February 1979, she was invested as a Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire 7 months before her death at her home on Capri, aged 81. Gracie Fields was mentioned in the 1987 film Wish You Were Here, and the 2006 film The History Boys. On the 3rd of October 2009, the final train to run on the Oldham Loop before it closed to be converted to a tramway, a Class 156, was named in her honor. Fields was granted the Freedom of Rochdale, the local theatre in Rochdale. The Gracie Fields Theatre was opened by her in 1978. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.